welcome back to Old Testament Study with Hello and Rick Piper. Me. I hope you are all doing great. This should be another fun-filled episode. And I love it. And you will see the introduction in here in a second. So I'll shut up so I can get myself onto the real introduction. Okay. Hey, also, as we're about to get started, I'm gonna show a little video Halal did a few weeks ago. I did listen to this several times, but we did a show last week, or before this one, I should say. And we talked a lot about it. We don't talk a lot about it in this video. Unfortunately, when we did the video, I didn't record his audio. I got mine. So maybe leave a message in the comments if you want to see that video from my end. Of course, it won't have um the video where we talked about the video that you're about to see, or parts of it plus a whole lot of other stuff. But if you want to at least just see things from my end, um leave a message in the comments. So with that, we'll show this about 3 minute clip that Halal did, and then we'll go into me and him talking a little bit about it, because it's hard to rehash everything we said a week before over the same video. So, and impossible to remember everything you said or whatever. Um, so yeah, 3 minute video, and then we'll get into discussing things. We'll be all over the place, but we'll do a little bit on this video, not as much as when we did it before. So I guess I should stop talking so you can hear this and then watch on. Okay, catch you at the Uh, so how are you today? Hello.
I'm doing pretty good. How about you?
Good, good, good. Well, we are at this again. Unfortunately, we did try to do this last week. Actually, we did do this last week, but I didn't record your audio, so I'm not sure. Uh,
Look, I don't know what to do with you.
I know, I know, I know. Um, I recorded my audio. It's fine. The
That's great.
picture of you is great, but you talk and nothing comes out.
So it's probably how some people prefer it. I'm sure. So
Yeah. So yeah. You were going over saying about how Genesis Raban, the Raban, I think that. No,
well, last week I talked about Rashi's first his initial comments on Genesis,
yeah. Oh,
and
Rashi.
he does something kind of surprising, and that is that he starts his whole commentary uh, on the book of Genesis off by asking why are we even starting in Genesis, right? Like it's
Yeah.
like well, Rashi, is that really the question you want to ask here? I mean, don't we just it's in the Bible, so let's go for it. But the question is that look, there's an issue here, and that is that um, if the Torah is a book of commandments and laws that God wants us to keep, because ultimately Judaism is a law religion, and that we believe that God's will is expressed through His commandments. So if you
Mhm.
want to know what God's will is, one of those ways to do so is by keeping His commandments. That's for sure His will.
Yeah.
So, so if that's the case, then shouldn't we get started on the law aspect, on the commandment aspect as quickly as possible? And if we're going to do that, we need to go to Exodus 12:2.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So, but so what is Exodus 12:2 about? Exodus 12:2 is about this will be the beginning of months for you. It's about the Rosh Chodesh, the renewal, the month, right? The new month, and
Yeah.
this will be the head of the months.
Yeah.
So
A starting
go
point.
ahead.
I was gonna say a starting point. This is the start of your years. This is your year one.
Well, actually, the beginning of our months is of course Nisan, and that was the month that they're talking about.
Yeah.
But Nisan is actually uh, the seventh month of the year. The first month of the year is Tishrei. So how can you have like this is the you know so we actually have sort of a new year for the world, Rosh Hashanah, and then we have Rosh Chodesh, and now we have Rosh Chodesh every month. That's the new moon every month.
Yeah.
So so every month we observe Rosh Chodesh. We just had Rosh Chodesh last week,
Yeah.
and so or I guess Saturday, but uh, it really depends on some people will do it and then they'll put it off to a certain point. But well, I mean, there's a separation. There is Rosh Chodesh, which is Rosh Chodesh, and then those will be 1 to 2 days of extra prayers like Hallel and different things. And then there's the Baruch Halavana, which is the blessing of the new moon, and that's usually a couple of weeks into the month that we do that. I know I'm going on with this. You guys probably don't care, but
Oh no, it's all interesting.
it's all attached. But it's relevant if you're reading like the Bible and you talk about when there was this custom for David to come every month, and he was Shaul as King Saul, and that's because they were doing their monthly uh, Rosh Chodesh, their new moon festive meal, and that's actually a thing. Like we do different festive things. Like I try to get my wife like some candy. For women, it's kind of a holiday. Like it's like it's supposed to be that women don't usually have to work on Rosh Chodesh.
uh,
Men either ignore the dirtiness or they help out. Supposed to help out, I guess. But yeah, so it's very important, and this all is important also because we use it to we want to know like when are our kings, how long have our kings actually served,
Yeah.
like when do we start counting the months. And so there's actually one of the interesting things here is that the Jewish calendar is a combination of a solar lunar calendar. It does both.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because we're supposed to, one, make sure that um, Nisan is in the spring.
Yeah.
Well, the seasons of the year are ruled by the sun, but the months are ruled by the moon.
Yeah.
So we need both of those things in order for our calendar to work ultimately.
Yeah.
So so anyway, so
Yeah.
now it's kind of strange saying that this is the first commandment, but it is. It's a commandment because it says this will be the beginning of months for you.
Yeah.
Now, some understand that to be saying this uh, state of the moon is when you begin the month. Others understand it to mean this will be the very first month
Yeah.
of all the months of the year. So there's two different interpretations. You can actually
Yeah.
accept both of them, and they'd both be correct. There's no contradiction really.
Yeah.
So anyway, so Rashi gets into to this thing where he's very interested in this part, and then he leaves this from there, and then he goes into oh, excuse me, I'm sorry.
No
He goes
problem. No
into
problem.
the next part of all of this, which is what we were going to talk about today, but I couldn't get my recording working, and you flubbed up the audio last week, and so
Yeah. Yeah, so we're doing something new, This conversation is going different than last week already, so.
that's right, that's right. Like we both flubbed it up on one way or the other, so we ended up we're redoing last week, which I guess is easier. The problem is that all I've got on my brain is what I was going to do this week. So I'm kind of like oh, the interesting thing about what I studied this week.
Yeah.
But so anyway, so Genesis 1, when God began to create heaven and earth. So the language is very interesting here because this word bereshit, which is we translate usually in English translations as in the beginning.
Yeah.
All the Jewish commentators have a problem with this word because we all know that if you want to talk about the first, right, the first thing or whatever, the word there is Rosh Hashanah. Just like Rosh, uh, Rosh Hashanah, the Rosh is like the head or the beginning. Reshit is a construct word. It's always with something else, like the beginning of his fields, the start of his crops, or things like that. So, but it's strange that if we were talking about if the purpose of Genesis is to talk about what happened at the very first, what's the first thing God did, then we're using the wrong word. But if we're using the word Bereshit, we've got a different problem. And that is that it's missing a word.
Yeah.
So on one way of approaching it, Bereshit, if we're saying it's the beginning of everything, well, you're using the wrong word. So that's a problem. And if you want to say that Bereshit, just the way it's understood generally, it's a problem because it's missing a word. So there's always like Reshit is always in the construct form, which means that it's one word, Reshit, connected to another thing. Beginning of his rule, beginning of it's like it's always connected like a noun. So it's a problem. I mean, it's an interesting, and I believe that when we have these interesting grammar issues, it's because God wants us to stop and pay attention and slow down and think about it a little bit. Like,
Yeah.
why did he do that? I mean, there's even problems with the bait at the beginning because the bait is the very first letter, but it's also used as a preposition. So really, when we talk about Bereshit, there's actually um,
Yeah.
there's two words there. The bait is a preposition, which are a prefix that can mean in, on, right, when. So it has a few different meanings, and sometimes it's just really depends on the context or how you
Yeah.
translate it into English. So also, it's interesting. I know everybody's going, "Oh my gosh, he is giving us a Hebrew grammar lesson." Oh, this guy knows what I like. This guy knows what I'm about. I'm about Hebrew grammar lessons, right? Please bring it on, right? I think
Yeah, well,
Rick looks really excited. He's like, "Oh yes, more."
well, I in some ways I am because, um, you know, as Christians or Jewish people, I think we need that don't necessarily understand the Jewish language today because maybe they've grown up wherever that they haven't learned Hebrew.
Sure.
We need to. I say, especially as Christians, most Christians don't know Hebrew.
Yeah.
So we need to understand.
Most Christians don't know Greek, is from what I've been told too.
Yeah, that either. They don't know any of the languages in the Bible. Especially ones that grown up learning English or probably Spanish or whatever language you grew up learning. You
And
know.
most Catholics don't know Latin.
Yeah.
Bubbly comma pardoso nidolito. That's my
eh,
really bad fake Latin.
Yeah,
Sorry.
but
Anyway,
uh,
that's my rabbit trail. That's my sleepy
yeah,
rabbit
but
trail.
my point is with we don't know it, so this is good to learn. I hope you know what you're talking. I'm pretty sure you know what you're talking about for these words because you speak the language and all that. So I would hope that you know something about Hebrew language.
Well, we're dealing with biblical Hebrew, and modern
Yeah,
Hebrew is different
yeah,
in some ways. I mean, there's a lot of crossover. I mean, if knowing biblical Hebrew helps you with modern Hebrew. But the interesting one of the interesting things that I was going to point out was that um, in Bereshit, the the patach, which is or it's not a patach actually, but the letter or the vowel under the bait for Bereshit is actually the double dot one. I said it's a shva. It's been a while since I've used the name of it, but what it usually means that if you have it, uh, it is the preposition or it means but if there's a line under the baby, that would be the. So it's indefinite versus definite. So here it's indefinite. So what that means translation wise is you could translate Bereshit as in a beginning, not in the beginning. In the beginning, the is not really there, not according to the Masoretic text.
yeah,
But that's how we translate it. Now, part of that, um, so it really kind of goes to a couple of things. One, is it hinting at something more, something deeper? Is it a issue of a more or less literal interpretation or understanding of the Hebrew scriptures? What's going on there, and so it really depends on what you're trying to accomplish. When you read the Torah, it's kind of funny. It's kind of like, well, what is it? What does this mean in English, right? You go, well, what are you trying to do? Like, how are you trying to understand it, right?
yeah.
Do you want like the simple meaning, or do you want
Complex
the more
meaning.
metaphorical meaning? Do you want the mystical meaning? Like, what direction are you going in? So
Yeah,
I'll give you an example of a mystical interpretation, and that is that, or it's a mystical idea, which everybody knows about. Like if you've read like Kabbalah 101, this gets brought up all the time. The very first letter in the Hebrew Bible is the bait, and the bait. I think do I have a whiteboard in here? Maybe I'll draw it for you. Let me see if I can draw it. That'd be kind of fun.
yeah.
Let me see. And you'll have to tell me if you can see it or not. Whiteboard. Okay, start a new whiteboard.
Okay.
Play that funky music, whiteboard. Okay. Someone needs to access the something or another. Share with, okay, let's try it. See if that works. Are you seeing anything?
Oh, okay. I need to. Okay, so give me a second. Well, you are. Oh, okay, yeah, that came up.
Okay, so the very first letter in the Hebrew Bible is the Beit. Okay, and so forgive me for this. This is not my typical drawing program, but the Beit. And you look at this, and
uh,
now the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet is actually the Aleph. Okay, so it's the very first. Okay, but the Hebrew scripture doesn't start off with the Aleph. Why doesn't it start off the Aleph? Because the Aleph actually is the same uh, word. What was the Aleph is also Elohim, and I wrote that incorrect on purpose, but because we're not supposed to write it out like that. So Elohim, so that's God. That's one of God's names. So it doesn't. We don't start the Torah off with that because we don't give the idea um, that somehow or another that we are in some way like God or our God or that God was created or whatever else.
yeah,
So we start off with the bait or that only you could really say only God is one, and Aleph also means one, because that's
yeah,
this numerical value. And there's only one who is one, and that's the Holy One.
yeah.
So we start off with bait. So bait is fine. Nobody can get upset
Well,
with bait.
is that a word or a letter?
It's a letter, but it can
Which
also be a word. But it can also be a word.
okay.
Like I was just saying, it can be in, on, when,
Oh, when? I thought you said when.
when,
When?
WHEN. Yeah. So it can be a letter, it can also be a word. It's a preposition. It starts
Yeah,
it has like a place, I guess you could say. So anyway, so the bait here, if you notice the open section is pointing in this direction right here, right? It's pointing to the left. So
yeah,
why does it open up this way? Why does the first letter of the Torah point in this direction? Because we're supposed to know this is closed off. Whatever happened before the creation account, before in the beginning, we don't we can't talk about that. We don't know.
yeah.
It's forbidden knowledge, right?
And
And so really,
and for
go ahead.
those that don't know, you guys instead of going, I think where English goes left to right, you guys goes right to left for
That's
you
right.
guys.
Yep.
So you're closing off the before, which would be on the right hand side because you'd be reading towards the left.
Right, exactly. So yes, that's a good point. So we're going to read from right to left, and so that's why that it's closed on the opposite side of the bait, because we're not supposed to ask what happened before in the beginning. That's not information we can know or understand, and we shouldn't really worry about it too much. So it's really about Bereshit moving forward, in the beginning moving forward. That's the stuff we can talk about. And so this whole idea here is that this right here is we're open to go to the left, but we're not open to go to the right.
Yeah, you're supposed to go forward, not backwards,
That's right. You can go up in holiness, not down.
or you shouldn't be going down. You should be going up.
But it
Unfortunately,
has a
some people go down in holiness. Unfortunately,
well, I think we all kind of struggle with where we're holding.
yeah,
It's not always so easy to be perfect all the time. I struggle with it. I know people are having trouble believing that I struggle with being perfect, but
yeah,
it's actually true. And they're sort of going, "Oh, really? Wow." No, I'm kidding. I'm joking around. I'm kind of tired, so my jokes are really going landing kind of flat right now.
yeah.
But that was a joke. That was a joke. Anyway, I don't really believe I'm perfect. In case anybody's wondering. So anyway,
Well, you're
so
perfectly bad.
thank you. I appreciate that.
Well, you perfectly struggle.
Let me see that. Yeah, that's what I was missing.
Okay,
Oh,
so
sorry,
yeah,
my thing.
no problem.
So, um, so this is the first word in the Torah, Bereshit. Interestingly enough, if you look at this, the first three letters, Beit, Resh, Aleph, actually means he created. Okay.
Okay.
In modern Hebrew, the yud taf ending is a diminutive, and a diminutive is something that makes something tiny. So, for example, if I want to say 1/4, I would say revi'it, 1/4. Okay. So, however, we also have in here the name Rosh. Rosh means a head, a beginning. And here we have that little dagish there. Okay. And that can be an ending. However,
So he created beginning.
well, like I say, there are lots of little things in here that you can uh, that we end up having. There's a connection with our oral
Mm,
tradition, with the written tradition, that we come with these interesting insights.
yeah.
So Reshit is the word I keep talking about versus Rosh Hashanah, uh, Roshon, which is first. So we also have each letter is a numerical value.
Mm,
It 200.
yeah. I've heard a little bit about numer.
I don't,
Ju-
yeah,
uh,
I don't want to get into that. That stuff gets
yeah.
kind of that
Yeah,
thing kind of.
I've heard a
But
little bit about Jewish numerology. Maybe
but
that's not the right term, but
no, we call it gematria, gematria.
yeah,
But I do want to point out one thing
because I
here.
believe the number of truth is five, completion is seven, and
A
I
met
know.
is the met. The word a met is not five. It's more than five.
Okay, or just that five means truth or something like that. I don't know.
It means hey.
Hey, which is
Okay. So one thing I want to point out is Bereshit bara Elohim. If you underline the last letter for each of these words, you have a mem, you have an aleph, and you have a tav, right? And if you put these, if you rearrange these letters, you have something very amazing. Oops. You have the word emet, which means truth.
okay.
So Proverbs says the beginning of his word is truth, right? So then Proverbs,
Yeah.
why did Proverbs get this from? Well, because the word is literally there. Emet is actually there in there. Yes, you have to rearrange some of the letters, but I mean the three letters are there, and that's probably what Proverbs is alluding to. So the beginning of God's word is truth. So the world is created in truth.
Hmm.
So but anyway, so those are some interesting things that we get to look at. Um, you know, different Jews like to study different levels of the Torah.
Yeah.
Um, I'm more of a meat and potatoes guy. I'm not really I don't really do the mysticism very much. I like Bashat. I like the grammar. I enjoy you know, what seem to be more like real connections to things. It's not that the mystical stuff isn't real connections. It's just that it's not the way I think. And so there are Jews who really think they're very holy and they think about those mystical ideas. And I find the mysticism within like the everyday sort of like the Peshat, the simple meaning.
Yeah.
So, oh, can you hold on? I yell it. I think somebody said the door. Hold on. Hi, how's it? Oh, hey, you guys will come in? I got somebody on the phone on the thing, but you can come in, please. Oh no. Sorry, Rick, we have some visitors.
Yeah, no problem.
What's going on here?
Not that he
Oh,
was able
okay.
to hear me say no problem.
I was planning on it. Tomorrow morning? Okay. Thanks, guys. Okay, some friends stopped by and dropped something off. So,
Cool.
it's good for you. That's what editing is for.
Yeah, yeah, I will definitely edit that
You
out.
can cut that part out. It's kind of awkward. I was like, who's at the door? It's like, 9:30. So then my friend was like, you coming with us to davening at the shul tomorrow? Because you know, I daven in different places. So sometimes, I'll daven at home. Sometimes I daven at a place across the street. And then there's the main shul down we get like a little group of like 3 or 4 guys, and we go into town and daven over there. Most days we all daven over there, but yeah. So it's a big part of the Jewish life is prayers, and so
Yeah,
it's part of like the social aspect too, not just the
yeah. I
spiritual
think it should be a bit
aspect.
more part of the Christian life, but unfortunately, some of us are bad at doing it on a consistent basis. I'll probably say me.
Well, there's actually like two main forms of prayer. One is the daily prayers that we have to say every day, like the 3 prayers a day during the week.
Yeah,
We have 4, I guess you could say technically on Shabbat, and then 5 on like Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur. Um, but there's also what's called Hitbodedut, which that is like independent prayer. So we have like formal prayers that we do as together as a community, and then we have prayers that we do on our own,
yeah,
and those can be whatever you want. You can make it those prayers.
yeah,
And I was just listening. I haven't done this in a while, and I'd really like to start back doing it because there's a Jewish rap. He's got a rap star, but he also does singing and everything. His name's Nissim Black, and he's got some great music. I really like his stuff. And he did Hitbodudu. Uh, there was a crisis in his life, um, and there was something going on. It was a very difficult time for his family, and he went and did Hitbodudu for like 17 hours straight. The longest I've done is like 6 hours, and that's the idea of Hippo to do is really you're kind of coming to Hashem and you're talking to him in prayer, and you're really like laying it out, and depending on what you're trying to accomplish, sometimes you just want to speak out your soul, like
yeah,
Hannah did in Samuel,
yeah,
uh, but there's kind of a way that you actually approach God, especially when you're trying to ask for something in your life that's lacking, and that is the very first thing you should always do when you approach God in prayer is you should thank him for all the good things you have in your life. Every nice thing, I mean, it doesn't matter. Oh, I got up this morning and there was a piece of nicely wrapped bubble gum on my desk and it was delicious and I loved it. You should all of that because those are things that we enjoyed and we should be appreciative of that.
yeah,
And once you get the funny thing is I found that when I go through this process, like I'm feeling like, oh man, the world's collapsing around me. There's no hope. I don't know what to do. And when I start off by just um, enumerating the things I'm grateful for, more often than not, that really solves a lot of my problems.
yeah.
It's funny. It takes a lot of the worries away. But then the next
Because
thing is
you're
go
getting
ahead.
outside of yourself, and not making
Sure.
not really making. You're making things about you, but you're not making things about you.
Well, you're recognizing that even though there are things that might be negative in your mind, there's also a lot of good, a lot of
Yeah,
positive things as well.
yeah,
So, but the next thing you do is that you then admit to God, all the sins and things you've done, and you really like you're supposed to say, do tshuva, like you're supposed to say, I've done this. Sometimes I yell at my kids. I'm mean sometimes. I'm sorry, Hashem. Will you please, forgive me and help me? Of course, also if you're doing it to somebody else, you have to ask them for forgiveness as well. You can't just say, yeah, I slapped the neighbor kid. God, I hope you're okay with that and you forgive me. No, you have to, you should have slapped the neighbor kid for number one, but you should
Yeah.
apologize to the person you've wronged.
Yeah.
And so that's a very
Uh,
important thing, because that right there is you're going through a process of them becoming contrite and humble, and you're
mm, yeah.
reflecting on your life.
Yeah.
Because sometimes when we have hard things that happen in our life, sometimes it's because God's trying to get our attention and tell us,
Yeah.
hey, you need to right the ship. And then
Uh,
after you've done those two things, that's when you make your petition. But you ask God. You
yeah.
say, look, I don't deserve anything. I mean, I know that I don't deserve it, and I would ask you that you give me a free gift, that you will do this thing for me, and don't
Yeah.
count it for my merit. Don't
Yeah.
don't make me pay for it. I recognize I really don't deserve it anyway. Please just bless me in this way. And I don't know, when I used to do it consistently, it was fantastic. It
Yeah.
really helped me be on track with things. I was very positive. So it's something I want to start doing again. But I don't know how I got on this, but that was
Well, it was you coming back from your friends there that came
oh
to
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I was gonna ask one other thing in all that too. With the prayer and about the, the forgiveness. Would one other part be making sure you are forgiving others that have wronged you?
Yeah, absolutely. Like we have a thing where that, for example, if let's say, for example, Bob wrongs Steve, right?
Yeah.
And Bob is obligated to go to Steve and say, I apologize, I'm sorry. And maybe Bob's not happy. Then no, I don't believe you. I'm not accepting your what you say. And you sincerely pursue this. He says three, but three just represents the fact that you've really put a lot of effort into it. You've been sincere as you possibly can. If Steve does not recognize, after you've put in lots and lots of sincerity into your apology, and you've really meant it, like internally you mean it to him, then that's really, at that point, it becomes between Steve and God. It's no longer between you and Steve.
Yeah.
But you do have an obligation to attempt to seek the forgiveness from others when you wrong them. And when people
Yeah.
apologize to you, really, you should do your best to accept their apology if possible. Now,
Yeah.
having said that, there was a question that was asked when I was in yeshiva by one of the guys. He said to the rabbi, he said, look, he said, what about pedophiles? Right? He said, we're supposed to believe a person can change. We're supposed to give them the benefit of the doubt, right? But what about like a pedophile? Like I wouldn't leave my kid around there. So the rabbi said there's a difference between forgiving a person and trusting a person.
Yeah.
And if you have a person who likes to apologize but doesn't like to change,
Yeah.
then then you don't have to accept that apology because that person isn't being sincere. It's
Yeah.
just really better if at all possible to not have
Yeah.
that person in your life if it's
Yeah.
possible.
Yeah.
But
It's yeah.
reasonable.
You can forgive them. Doesn't mean you leave your
Forget.
kids around them.
Right. You can forgive without forgetting. And so that's a very delicate balance because a lot of people are right when they say, well,
Yeah.
I can't just forgive somebody, and people think forgive means I have to pretend like it never happened. And
Yeah.
that's not what forgiving means. What it means is recognizing whatever they did wrong did happen,
Yeah.
but recognizing that they're actually trying to do better and they want to improve and change, and they
Yeah.
don't want to lose the relationship they have with you.
Yeah. And just the fact that for not forgiving somebody hurts you more than
Sure,
it hurts them.
sure,
Because you're the one grudging on it. Well, hopefully not. Some things it's not even in your mind when you're not forgiving them, but more likely
right.
that just builds up. If you stop not forgiving more and more people, it just
Well, and this is one of the reasons we have rules regarding how we speak
yeah.
and the use of speech, because the fact of the matter is that it's very easy to offend other people
Yeah.
and hurt their feelings and unknowingly. And I used to do this a lot when I was younger. I was sort of very uh, not self-aware. I was kind of unaware about how my words affected other people,
Yeah.
and and I wouldn't realize it until years later. I go, oh, I was that sounded like I was being a jerk. Now I may not have meant to be a jerk, but I was certainly from
Yeah.
an objective standpoint, I sounded like I was being a jerk.
Yeah.
And but again, it's all about you have to these are things you have to work
y-
on throughout your life.
Yeah. I learned from a, I'd say, fairly, well, depends on what you consider young age, like teens, I would say, maybe early 20s, that, when you talk, there's three things you're saying: the words that are coming out of your mouth, what
Yeah,
you mean them to mean, which can be two different things,
sure,
and then what the person that you're talking to interprets them as.
right.
Those can be three totally different things.
Three totally different things for sure. Yep, yep. Well, and so that's why you have to be careful the way you talk to people. I mean, sometimes you also have to be careful about like praising other people. For example, let's say that you've got your friend Steve, and Steve gave you $100. Well, it just seems natural that when you're around people, you go, "Steve's a great guy. He gave me $100." But could be that you make that announcement, and there's somebody there going, "Well, I asked Steve for $100, and he didn't give it to me. Steve's not a good guy. If Steve were a good guy, he would have given me $100, right?"
Yeah.
It sounds crazy, but this stuff it happens. And so
Yeah.
what you've done now is that you're making Steve look bad. You're making that person look bad. You're making yourself look bad. You've
Yeah.
unintentionally stirred up. What do they call it? You've stirred up an old turd,
Yeah.
right? Don't stir up an old turd. Because it starts smelling again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, that's the
You
South.
stirred up the hornet's nest. Maybe that's a
That's
better.
it is better. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people start getting stung,
Yes, people get
and that
stung.
hurts. And you're trying to do the right thing, and praising Steve for a thing, but maybe Steve doesn't want everybody to know, because maybe then everybody's coming to Steve. Hey, can I borrow $100? Can I borrow a
Sure.
hundred bucks? And Steve can't give everybody $100.
Right, right. So it's usually better to keep that conversation. So it's better to keep that stuff to yourself and just. But here's the dilemma though people find themselves in. If I'm careful about the way I talk, then what do I talk about? Because when you're careful with your words, you start realizing that there are a lot of things you won't talk about anymore, and those things are really interesting.
Yeah.
But you're trying to do the right thing. So what do you talk about? And so in the Jewish world, the answer is we talk about Torah.
Yeah.
You never go wrong talking about Torah. And so that way you keep the attention not on talking about Steve and Joe and Bob and all these guys, but you're talking about Moshe and Danielle and Yeshayahu and all those guys. So
Yeah. And God,
you know,
you know.
well, God of course is in there. Uh, so, but yeah, I think I need to get going.
Yeah, I was thinking it's around the 40-minute mark, and you were saying you wanted to end early, so we we covered a few different things. Um, Not really what we covered last week. Uh, Totally different direction.
Right. I think
Hopefully,
we covered it very quickly. I think we did a quick summary at the beginning.
yeah, but it went. I'd say it went good. Of course, there's going to be a couple minutes cut out there, or a minute, with you having to deal with your visitors. We don't need everybody hearing your business. Not that we heard much. It's just
Hey, what you doing? Oh,
yeah.
I'm at the theater.
um.
Exciting.
So, where can people find you? Hello.
Well, do I want them to find me?
Well, that's up
No.
to you. If you don't want to share.
uh, but online, you can New Hero Comics uh, and newherocomics.com, where you can go and see all the comics and things that I'm doing over there. I've got coloring books, a comic
Uh,
book, issue number one, and a novel, superhero novel called Superhero Gets a Grandpa System. Have I told you about this, Rick? Do you know? Yeah, have I told you
yeah,
about this?
we talked about it a little bit last week. I'm not sure whether it was on air or off air.
I think it's a pretty fun story. The idea
Yeah.
is that there's this kid, he's a superhero, but he's not doing so great. And if you read like Chinese fantasy novels, they have these things called like system novels, and that is that you're sitting there and you're minding your own business, and one day you get a little ding ding ding. Welcome. You now have the absolutely most handsome man system. And so then you complete these tasks and you go around and then you get points and the points help you become more handsome or whatever the point of it. It's usually become the most fantastic martial artist in the universe to where you're like Goku, right? And so
Yeah.
that's where most of these things end up going to. So he actually has some problems. The main character's name is G Hawk, and or Kyle Kane. Kyle Kane has a bit of a problem, and that is that he can't control his abilities
Mm,
since he was young, and so he has to actually, in order for him to leave the house, he has to get into a special wheelchair that straps him down and doesn't allow him to use his powers. And when he's in the house, he has to have special magnetic braces that don't allow him to hug people, because if he flicks the wrong way accidentally, he could kill somebody.
mm.
And so when he's at home, he has to be careful. When he's on the road, he has to be careful. And even at school, around other super people, he has to be careful. And so it talks about this whole thing. So the system shows up and it's trying to help him out. It wants to help Kyle out, and this sets him off on a series of adventures. So
Sounds
there
cool.
it is. I think
So
it's a fun story. I'm
yeah.
enjoying it.
So people go check Halal out here on YouTube, Newer Hero Comics, as well as what channel are the short videos are going to be up on his
On
name,
Hilo Penrod. Yeah,
Hanel
Hilo
Penrod,
Penrod.
and you'll see his lovely face for the avatar. So it'll be easy to spot as a channel.
Right.
So and I'll say my goodbyes in my short vid after this. So
Okay.
catch
All
y'all
right.
later.
See you
Uh,
later.
Hey, so that is it. I hope you really enjoyed that. It was a great talk. As always, me and Hello get along great. We talk great. And it's getting great getting those things from Jewish perspective and especially learning the Old Testament and things that surround it, the culture. Of course, the culture is a little different than today, but it's similar. And learning from somebody who knows the language and all that, and some of the cultural stuff a lot better than me, and then most of us do. So we will have another one next week. And again, please let me know whether you would like to see the video where it's about 50 minutes, um, give or take a little bit of, you know, me trying to figure out stuff. Well, not stuff that, where unfortunately I'm chatting with Hello, but I didn't record the audio on his end. So let me know in the comments below if you would like to hear that. Um, Half of a conversation. Maybe you can get the gist of some of it. Unfortunately, you won't get his information, what he says exactly. So maybe it'll be worth it. Maybe it won't. Let me know. Okay, so thanks for tuning in, and remember to like, share, and all that stuff. Have a great and wonderful day. Love you all.